Welcome back to the channel, you beautiful bastard. So, today is the update on what's going on with my car. Pretty sure I finally have it nailed down. Obviously, only time will tell. I hope that there is not too many follow-up videos to this one, because I'm already embarrassed that I'm having to make this one to begin with. A little pro tip, if you ever have an electrical issue in your car, start by pulling the fuses, because then you won't have to shotgun 2 batteries, an alternator, and a starter in hopes of chasing some sort of electrical issue, which ends up being your radio. Your radio. So, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna break down some stuff that I documented throughout the past week or so, and we're gonna go through the numbers and see what you guys think. Let's do that. Here's what I did. I took a bunch of numbers. Here we have the 3 different fuses that I had to pull. We have the amp draws here, so 1 for the radio. We can ignore this number, this 2.3 for the courtesy lamp. That was the interior lamps, and like a complete idiot, I was testing everything with my doors open. So don't do that. SEO1, so I learned that's my OnStar. So the whole time that my car has been running with my OnStar on, it's been searching for signal, kind of like a data roaming on a phone. So that's what that was, just gonna leave that one out. With all 3 of these fuses pulled, it was a draw of 0.12, and with all of them in, it was 4.5. But the 2 we're looking at here came to a total of 2.0. Now, here's what I did. I documented the power draw of my car at different points with different things added over the span of, 5 days? So here we have February 3rd. Now this right here is going to be with everything taken out. You'll be able to see when I've added things back in and when I pulled them, wherever that, here it is, pulled right there. So what we're looking at here is February 3rd at 6 p.m. I checked the voltage. We were at 12.3. That's with everything pulled out. February 4th at 6 a.m., so over 12 hours, I had a drop of 0.05 volts. Well within the range of possibility. I drove, charged up the battery some, just a little bit. All these little driving indicators, they're very small amounts of driving, so my battery's not gonna jump a vast amount. February 4th at 2 p.m., so what is that, 8 hours later, I'm at 12.12, that's with driving, so I kinda didn't take the difference you can see is missing here. Drove again. February 5th at 8 o'clock in the morning, I was at 12.19. Same day at 4 p.m., so that's 8 hours later. 0.02 volts, we're looking good so far. I drove, we're sitting at 12.27. Now here's the culprit, gentlemen. I added my radio back in. So this whole time, all these numbers you see here, I know it's not the wiring at the radio, because if it was, these numbers would look drastically different. So I added my radio in 3.5 hours. This is the same day, 3.5 hours later, 12.03. I dropped 0.24 volts. That tells me that my radio head is bad. Something in it must have short-circuited. It's a few years old and it's a relatively cheap model, and I think something just went wrong. I don't really know what. There's no way to really know. So here we are. Added the radio, dropped the voltage. Immediately took the radio out after this. I didn't mark it, but I took the radio out here. So I added my SEO1 fuse. Now, I wasn't gonna do it, and then Lindsay was like, oh, wouldn't it make more sense to add it back in and double check and make sure you're not gonna screw yourself later? Gentlemen, if you have a woman in your life, listen to her. She is almost always going to be smarter than you and think things through way better. We are just 200-pound hairy gorilla boys running around thinking we know what we're doing. We don't, and it hurts me to say, but most of the time the ladies do. So thank you, Lindsay, for helping me out with this. Boom. So SEO1 fuse is back in. We drove. Sitting here at February 7th, 12.12. We drove. February 8th, so that's the next morning, We're at 11.75. Don't totally know what's up with that number. That was yesterday, according to my watch. The weather's been real cold lately. Drove, got back up to 12.24, sitting at 11.78, just, what is that, 5 hours later, something like that. 0.46 volts, look at that drop. So that's after adding this SE01 fuse. Quite the drop. That's what the drop was. That's what the drop was. It wasn't the weather. It was the SE01. Pulled that, let it sit for an hour and a half. I only dropped 0.03 at that point. Makes me feel better. Drove, I'm sitting back at 12.1. Now, the astute amongst you will know that that is still pretty low for a battery, and you would be right. But I'm just gonna take that as maybe my battery isn't the best anymore with all the draws going on with it. But what we're gonna do next is I'm going to get a new radio head and put that in and see if that does anything to help my problem. If you guys know any good, cheap radios, please leave it down below in the comment section. I don't want anything expensive. My car has 4 main speakers. I think right now 2 of them work. One of them sounds like absolute garbage. And so I don't want to spend all this money on a radio head if I'm not going to replace my speakers anytime soon. But yeah, so that's how we got here, boys. Everyone's been begging for an update on this on all the social media platforms. So leave your radio recommendations down below, and I will give you guys an update whenever that video drops. And until then, stay away from electrical issues. They're a huge pain.